Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some places are not meant to be found, yet they leave a scar in the official record. Tonight we open a file that should not exist, a file on a location that officially is nowhere, but appears everywhere it matters, in reports of disappearances, unexplained signals, and events the authorities refuse to acknowledge. This is the case of the phantom coordinates and the name that connects them all: Ashworth's Drop. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. There are places on this earth that the maps have forgotten. Deliberately. Welcome back to the Obsidian Archive. In our relentless search for the truth hidden in the margins of history, we often encounter stories of singular events: a haunted house, a cold case, a single UFO sighting. But what if the anomaly isn't an event, but a place? A location that refuses to be pinned down? A geographic ghost that surfaces time and time again in the most disparate of records, only to vanish without a trace? It has no name, no official designation. In the fragmented files we've pieced together, it's referred to only by a set of coordinates. Coordinates that, according to every official map, point to nothing more than impassable, unremarkable wilderness. This is the story of a location that shouldn't exist, yet persistently reappears in classified reports, forgotten journals, and anomalous data streams spanning nearly a century. It's an anomaly not of time, but of space itself. Our investigation begins where all such mysteries do, in the dust and silence of the archives. Not in one single library, but in a digital cross-referencing of countless databases. Geological surveys from mining corporations, declassified military flight logs, missing persons reports from remote counties, even seismic data from academic institutions. For years, these files sat in isolation, their secrets unconnected. But in the age of big data, patterns emerge. An algorithm, sifting through petabytes of information, flags a recurring data point. A single set of coordinates, appearing with a statistical frequency that defies coincidence. The reports are wildly different. A 1952 geological survey notes an inexplicable magnetic deviation at this point. A 1967 Air Force debriefing mentions an instrument malfunction over the same spot. A 1985 Forestry Service memo discusses a search and rescue operation where teams reported severe disorientation and nausea near these coordinates. A 2003 satellite imagery analysis logs a sensor blind spot at the precise location. Each report is an island, yet they all point to the same phantom landmark. The most chilling part? The redactions. In case after case, whenever these coordinates are mentioned, the surrounding text is blacked out with thick ink or digital blocks. Entire paragraphs are excised. Follow-up reports are stamped classified or archived, do not distribute. This isn't just a collection of coincidences. It's a pattern of active suppression. Someone, for a very long time, has known about this place and has gone to great lengths to keep it a secret. What are they hiding? Is it a natural phenomenon so bizarre it defies our understanding of physics? Is it a hidden installation? A black site operating beyond the reach of law and oversight? Or is it something else entirely? Something that has been there long before our maps were ever drawn. In this series, we will pull on these threads. We will examine the case files one by one, starting with the very first documented encounter. A story of a man who walked into the wilderness looking for minerals and found a place that wasn't on his map. A place from which he would never return. The first thread in the tangled web of this phantom location leads us back to 1952. The post-war era was a time of aggressive expansion and resource exploration. Uranium was the new gold, and prospectors, backed by powerful corporations, scoured the most remote corners of the continent. One such man was Dr. Alistair Finch, a brilliant but unassuming geologist contracted by Magnatech Mining Corporation. His assignment was simple: survey a vast, unexplored tract of land in the desolate interior, a region known for its complex geology and rugged terrain. Finch was a man of meticulous habits. He kept a detailed daily journal logging his findings, his coordinates, and his personal observations. It is through this journal, recovered from his abandoned base camp months after his disappearance, that we have our first eyewitness account of the anomaly. The first few weeks of his expedition were routine. Finch documented rock strata, took mineral samples, and complained about the black flies. But then, his entries began to change. On October 12, 1952, he noted a sudden and severe deviation in his compass readings. "Needle is spinning uselessly," he wrote. "Even the backup is unreliable. GPS is decades away. So out here, the compass is life. Something is profoundly wrong with the magnetism in this area." Over the next few days, his journal entries grew more erratic. He described a strange, oppressive silence that seemed to swallow all sound. His radio, his only link to the outside world, could transmit only static. He was completely alone. Then came the entry from October 17th, the last one he ever made. "I've left the designated survey grid," it begins. "The magnetic interference was pulling me south. I crested a ridge this morning and saw it. A valley. It's not on any of my topographical maps. It's a perfect bowl, maybe 5 miles across, filled with rock formations unlike anything I've ever seen. They're basalt, but they're not volcanic. They're carved. Geometric. The silence here is absolute. No birds, no wind. Just a low hum that I feel more in my bones than hear with my ears. The air is cold, clean. I'm going down to take a closer look. The coordinates are..." And there, he listed the exact coordinates that would later be flagged by our archival algorithm. The journal ends there. When Alistair Finch failed to make his scheduled radio check-in, Magnatech initiated a search. The search party found his base camp tidy and undisturbed. They found his journal sitting on his cot, but of Finch there was no sign. They flew aerial surveys and conducted ground searches for weeks. The most disturbing part of the official search report is this. At the coordinates Finch listed in his final entry, the search party found nothing. No valley, no strange rock formations, just the same rugged, unremarkable mountainside that was depicted on all their maps. The official conclusion was that Finch, disoriented by faulty equipment and the harsh conditions, had wandered off and succumbed to the elements. Case closed. But internal Magnatech memos, which we obtained through a Freedom of Information request, tell a different story. They speak of unexplained geophysical phenomena and recommend that the company relinquish its mineral rights to the entire quadrant, citing unforeseeable survey risks. The coordinates Finch provided were classified as a cartographical hazard within the company. Alistair Finch wasn't just lost. He had stumbled upon a place that exists and doesn't exist. He was the first official victim of the location that reappears in reports. Alistair Finch saw something that wasn't on his map. But what if the problem isn't the map, but reality itself? In this chapter, we move from eyewitness accounts to the cold, hard data of cartography and satellite imaging. How can a physical location, a valley 5 miles across, simply not exist on any official record? To understand the anomaly, you must first understand the history of how we see our world. For centuries, map-making was an art of approximation, of filling in the blanks. Vast swathes of the globe were labeled, "Here be dragons." But with the advent of aerial photography and later satellite surveillance, our maps became precise, absolute. Every square inch of the planet was charted, photographed, and indexed. Or so we thought. The coordinates pinpointed by Finch and the subsequent reports fall in an area that has been mapped repeatedly. We have topographical surveys from the 1940s, aerial photos from the 1960s, Landsat images from the 1980s, and high-resolution satellite data from today. In every single official, publicly available map, the location is shown as a featureless expanse of rugged mountains. There is no valley, no anomaly. It's a cartographical dead end. But this is where the story gets strange. Hidden within the archives of the U.S. Geological Survey and declassified Cold War-era spy satellite programs are glitches, errors in the data that were meant to be discarded. In 1965, a Corona spy satellite, on a pass over the Soviet Union, had to recalibrate its cameras. During this recalibration, it took a series of so-called junk images of North American wilderness. One of those images, at the edge of the frame and distorted by the camera's movement, captures our coordinates. And in that distorted image, for just a moment, you can see it. A perfectly circular depression in the landscape, a dark shape that does not conform to the surrounding geology. An official note on the image simply reads, "Lens flare or processing artifact, disregard." Then, in 1998, a commercial satellite, mapping a mineral deposit, experienced a momentary data dropout as it passed over the same coordinates. The raw data stream, before it was corrected by software, shows a topographical void, a hole in the digital elevation model. The system registered the area as having an altitude of 0, a physical impossibility in a mountain range. The error was automatically patched in the final public map, the void filled in with interpolated data from the surrounding terrain, effectively erasing the anomaly from existence. We spoke to a retired satellite imagery analyst who agreed to talk on the condition of anonymity. He called these areas data sinks. Officially, they don't exist, he told us. But we all knew the stories. Zones where the satellites get weird. Not just GPS signals, but imaging sensors, radar, everything. The data comes back corrupted, or blank, or just wrong. The standing order was to flag it for manual correction. We were essentially painting over a hole in the world because the system couldn't comprehend what it was seeing. This suggests the location isn't just hidden, it's elusive. It seems to possess a quality that actively resists our attempts to observe and record it. It is a ghost on the map, visible only in the errors, the glitches, and the discarded data that were never meant to see the light of day. The question is no longer whether it exists, but how? And what happens when our technology, our eyes in the sky, are forced to look away? A vanished geologist and a glitch on a map are compelling, but they remain circumstantial. For a cover-up of this magnitude to exist, there must be a more significant event, a moment where the anomaly posed a direct threat to a national interest. We found that event in a partially declassified U.S. Air Force incident report from November 3, 1967. The document is designated Incident 75 Alpha Tango. At the height of the Cold War, reconnaissance flights were a constant, high-stakes reality. On that day, a Lockheed U-2 spy plane, piloted by a Captain John Ellison, was on a high-altitude calibration flight. His route took him directly over the coordinates of our phantom location. According to the flight recorder transcript, everything was nominal until 14:32 Zulu time. Suddenly, Ellison's radio crackles with tension. "Mayday, mayday, mayday," he says, his voice strained. "Spire control. This is Dragon Lady 1. I have total avionics failure. I repeat, total failure. All needles are dead. My panel is dark." For the next 4 minutes, the U-2, a notoriously difficult plane to fly even with full instrumentation, was a glider at 70,000 feet. Ellison was flying blind. Ground control was unable to get a radar lock on his position. He had, for all intents and purposes, vanished. But what he saw in those moments is what elevates this from a simple malfunction to a key piece of our puzzle. With his instruments dead, Ellison looked down. His report, given in a debriefing hours later, is chilling. "The cloud cover broke," he stated, "and I saw something below. It wasn't on my flight chart, a hole, a perfectly circular patch of darkness. It wasn't a shadow. The sun was high, it was like looking into a well. The land inside was black, and the forest around its edge seemed bent, warped, like heat haze, but there was no heat. The airframe started to vibrate. I felt a pressure in my skull, a deep, thrumming sound that wasn't coming through my helmet." Ellison, an experienced test pilot, reported a profound sense of vertigo and what he called spatial dislocation. He felt as if the concepts of up and down were becoming meaningless. He fought to keep the plane level, wrestling with controls that felt sluggish and unresponsive. Then, as quickly as it began, it was over. As his flight path carried him past the edge of the circular void, his instruments flickered back to life, one by one. He regained control, re-established contact with Spire control, and brought the damaged aircraft back to base. The official report is a masterclass in bureaucratic obfuscation. The incident was attributed to a severe clear air turbulence event, combined with a previously unknown magnetic anomaly, causing a cascading electrical failure. Captain Ellison was grounded for medical observation, diagnosed with transient hypoxia, and later transferred to a non-flying role. The case was closed. But buried in an appendix, one we found only through a separate, misfiled document request, is a memo from the head of the Air Force's Foreign Technology Division. It recommends that the coordinates of Incident 75 Alpha Tango be designated a Prohibited Flight Zone, Level 7 classification. It mentions the need for further study of what it calls non-ionizing spatial distortion. This was no weather event. The United States Air Force encountered a phenomenon it could not explain, one that could disable one of its most advanced aircraft. They didn't solve the mystery. They simply erased it from the maps and warned their pilots to never fly there again. The location was no longer just a geological curiosity. It was now a matter of national security. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. There are some truths that are not buried, but erased, one black line at a time. In our last chapter, we followed the faint signal, the recurring anomaly in pilot testimonies and deep-sea sonar logs. A signal that pointed not to a glitch, but to a destination, a place that should not exist. But when you move from anecdotal evidence to the official record, you don't find answers. You find a wall, a monolithic wall of ink and bureaucracy designed to tell you one thing: turn back. Our investigation led us to the Freedom of Information Act, the supposed key to government transparency. We filed dozens of requests with every relevant agency: the Department of Defense, the CIA, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, even the Department of the Interior. We asked for flight path deviations, geological survey data for specific quadrants, and any internal communications referencing anomalous topographical or magnetic readings between 1950 and today. The responses were, in a word, chilling. Not because of what they contained, but because of what they didn't. Most were returned with the boilerplate rejection: cannot confirm or deny the existence of such records. This is a classic stonewalling tactic known as a GLOMAR response, typically reserved for matters of extreme national security, often involving covert intelligence operations or classified technologies. Why would a simple inquiry about a geographical location trigger a response reserved for state secrets? A few requests, however, were partially fulfilled. We received documents, hundreds of pages thick, but they were monuments to secrecy. Entire paragraphs, pages, and sometimes entire sections were covered in thick black bars. The redactions were surgical. They left just enough text to confirm we were on the right trail. Tantalizing phrases like, unusual seismic resonance at the designated coordinates, followed by a blacked-out block of text. Or, protocol for civilian redirection remains in effect, followed by another void. The redactions themselves tell a story. They aren't random. They form a pattern. The black ink always appears when the text approaches specifics, coordinates, dates of sustained observation, project names, or personnel involved. It's a calculated absence of information. We hired a digital forensics expert to analyze the PDFs to see if any metadata remained. What we found was even more disturbing. The redactions weren't just black boxes layered on top. The underlying text had been digitally shredded, completely expunged from the file's data structure. This wasn't a casual cover-up. It was a meticulous, technological erasure. When we pressed for justification, the official reply cited national security exemptions, specifically 50 U.S. Code Paragraph 3024, which protects intelligence sources and methods. What methods could possibly be compromised by confirming a piece of land? What intelligence source is a rock formation or a valley? The official narrative is silence. The unofficial narrative, written in the negative space of these redactions, is one of active, ongoing concealment. They are not hiding nothing. They are hiding something they believe is worth the immense bureaucratic effort to keep hidden from you, from me, from everyone. And the more they deny it, the more they redact. The more certain we become that this location is not just real, but profoundly important. Official channels gave us nothing but black ink and dead ends. But in the world of secrets, there are always cracks. Sometimes a voice escapes. Our investigation hit a turning point when an encrypted email appeared in our inbox. The sender was anonymous, identified only by a string of alphanumeric characters. The message was short. You're looking in the wrong place. You're asking for a map. You should be asking for the architects. Look for Nightshade. There was no other information. Nightshade. The name had the ring of a black project, one of those deeply buried programs that operate with unlimited funding and zero oversight. We spent months digging through archives, cross-referencing declassified budget reports, searching for any mention of the term. We found nothing. It was a ghost. Then a second email arrived. This one contained a single, heavily distorted audio file. The voice was electronically altered, a low, rasping whisper, but the fear in it was real. This was our source. He claimed to be a former physicist, recruited in the late 1980s for a joint DARPA and Department of Energy initiative he only ever knew as Project Nightshade. He never knew the location's name or its exact coordinates. He was flown in on blacked-out aircraft and worked in a subterranean facility. He called the place the Anomaly or the Locus. According to him, Project Nightshade wasn't about weapons or surveillance. It was about reality itself. He spoke of physics that didn't obey our known laws. He described non-Euclidean geometry manifesting physically, where hallways would loop back on themselves, and the internal dimensions of a room were larger than its external measurements. He whispered about temporal distortions, where personnel would experience missing time or moments of precognition. His primary work involved studying what he called frequency bleed, the idea that the location was a point of intersection, a place where another reality or multiple realities were brushing up against our own. The project's goal wasn't just to study this phenomenon, but to stabilize it, perhaps even to create a gateway. The source spoke of the psychological toll. He described colleagues having vivid, shared hallucinations. Others developed extreme paranoia or became catatonic. He said the place imprinted on you, that you took a piece of it with you when you left, and it never quite let you go. The most terrifying part of his testimony was about the project's abrupt end, or rather, its reclassification. In the mid-90s, after an incident he refused to describe, only calling it a containment failure, the project was officially shuttered. The facility was supposedly decommissioned, but he believes it never stopped. He claims it was just taken deeper underground, handed over to an entity that was not military or governmental, but something else entirely. His final words on the recording hang in the air. Stop looking for a place on a map. It's not a place anymore. It's a condition. And it's spreading. They didn't just open a door. They broke the lock. Our source from Project Nightshade warned us not to think of it as a mere place on a map. But the map is where the oldest clues are buried. The paradox of this location is not just that it's hidden, but that it appears and disappears from the very records meant to define our world. This is the cartographer's paradox. If you look at a modern satellite map from Google or Bing, the area we've zeroed in on is an unremarkable stretch of barren plains or dense, featureless forest. It is geographically boring by design. But if you dig into the archives, you find a different story. We unearthed a 1957 U.S. Geological Survey map, a relic from a time when the land was being charted with painstaking physical effort. On this map, right where there is now nothing, there is a complex and unique topographical feature, a deep, crescent-shaped valley with an unusual name, Echo Ravine, and a symbol indicating significant magnetic deviation. 10 years later, a 1967 aeronautical chart for military training routes shows the same area designated as a restricted flyover zone, R4808N. But by 1985, in a new edition of the same chart, R4808N is gone. The valley on the geological maps is gone. It's as if the land itself was revised. This isn't just about old maps being inaccurate. We found declassified corona satellite images from the 1960s. The early grainy photos clearly show the valley. But in images from the late 1970s, the valley is fainter, its edges seeming to blur. In the 1980s keyhole satellite imagery, it has vanished completely. How does a valley that is miles long and hundreds of feet deep just disappear from the face of the Earth? There are theories of phantom islands or cartographic traps, fictitious entries on a map to catch copyright infringers. But those don't involve restricted airspace and magnetic anomalies documented by government agencies. We spoke with a retired geodesist, an expert in the science of measuring the Earth's shape and gravitational field. He explained that while topography can change due to erosion or seismic activity, a change this drastic and this clean, without any corresponding geological record of an earthquake or landslide, is impossible. He suggested two possibilities. The first is a massive, clandestine terraforming project, an engineering feat on a scale that would dwarf the construction of the pyramids. The second, which he spoke of with great reluctance, was that our instruments are being deceived. He theorized about a localized field, some form of technology that could bend light and radar waves, creating a perceptual blind spot that projects a false image of the terrain to our satellites. It would be the ultimate camouflage, hiding a location by convincing the world it simply isn't there. The paradox is this: the more accurate our mapping technology becomes, the more invisible this place gets. It hides in plain sight, protected by a lie so fundamental it is written onto the surface of the planet. The location doesn't just reappear in reports, it disappears from reality. We have the official denials, the blacked-out documents that scream of a cover-up. We have the whispers of a physicist from a ghost program called Nightshade, speaking of impossible science. We have the cartographical paradox, a disappearing landscape that defies geology. Each piece of this puzzle is maddening on its own. But when you place them together, they don't just sit side by side, they connect, they point. This is the triangulation. We are not looking for a single point on a map. We are tracing the edges of a shadow cast by something immense. Let's begin to connect the lines. First, we overlay the historical maps showing the Echo Ravine with the coordinates from redacted flight incident reports. They match perfectly. The location where pilots reported catastrophic instrument failure in the 1970s is the exact same location as the restricted airspace R4808N and the vanished valley. Second, we take the testimony from our Project Nightshade source. He mentioned frequency bleed and seismic resonance. We cross-referenced our target area with the Global Seismic Monitoring Network. Publicly, the area is stable, but we gained access to raw, unfiltered data from a private university's geological department. In that data, we found it: a low-frequency, rhythmic hum, a seismic heartbeat emanating from deep beneath the ground at regular intervals of 3.14 hours. Pi, it's too perfect to be natural. It's a signal, a beacon. Third, we looked at patterns in time. We analyzed every report, every piece of data. The anomalous events, the disappearances of aircraft, the periods of intense magnetic fluctuation, they are not random. They cluster around specific dates. These dates correlate with moments of intense solar activity, solar flares, and coronal mass ejections. It's as if the location becomes more active, more visible to our instruments when it is being charged by the sun. The redactions, the whistleblower, the phantom valley, the seismic pulse, the solar connection, they all triangulate. they point to a single, terrifying conclusion. We are not dealing with a simple secret military base. The evidence suggests a massive subterranean facility built around a naturally occurring, or perhaps artificially created, physical anomaly. An anomaly that warps space, time, and perception. An anomaly that Project Nightshade attempted to control and weaponize, an effort that resulted in a containment failure. The denials are not to hide a base, but to hide the failure. The cartographical alterations are not camouflage, but a desperate attempt to keep people away from an area that may no longer be stable. We have triangulated the impossible. We know the where, and we have a chilling theory about the what. But a new, more terrifying question now emerges. The source from Nightshade said the condition was spreading. If this location is a wound in the fabric of our reality, then our investigation may be doing more than just observing it. We may be irritating it. And we have to ask ourselves, what happens when it finally notices us looking back? Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. Narrator. In the vast, cataloged history of the unexplained, there are stories that exist only in the margins, in faded ink, in the hushed testimony of broken minds. Our story tonight begins with one such ghost in the official record. He is known only as Witness Zero. His real name is a ghost, buried under layers of state-enforced anonymity. He was a geological surveyor, part of a three-man team charting a remote, desolate expanse of the Great Basin Desert in 1968. They were looking for mineral deposits. What they found was something that did not belong. His official debriefing, what little of it remains unredacted, is a chilling read. It speaks not of terror, but of a profound and violating wrongness. He describes how, over the course of an hour, the horizon began to fold. The distant mountains seemed to ripple, the sky taking on a bruised violet hue that absorbed sound. Then it appeared. He struggles for words, calling it a structure, but immediately retracts the term. It wasn't built. It had, in his words, congealed. He described impossible architecture, surfaces of a material like obsidian that seemed to drink the light, and angles that made his eyes water and his head ache. There were no doors, no windows, yet he felt an overwhelming compulsion to go inside, an invitation that wasn't spoken, but felt deep within his bones. His two colleagues, a man named Harris and another named Jensen, walked towards it as if in a trance. Witness Zero claims he tried to scream, but the air was thick, like water, and no sound emerged. He watched them touch the shimmering black wall and simply cease. They didn't vanish in a flash of light. They were just gone. One moment present, the next, their existence was subtracted from the world. The psychological transcript from his subsequent institutionalization is even more disturbing. He spoke of a silence that was not an absence of sound, but an active, crushing presence. He mentioned a feeling of being read, his memories and thoughts sifted through by an unseen intelligence. He drew sketches on the walls of his padded room, spirals, and non-Euclidean shapes that neurologists at the time dismissed as textbook schizophrenic ideation. But these same symbols would appear again, decades later, half a world away. The official report states his team was lost in a flash flood. A tragic but common accident. Witness Zero was declared mentally unfit, a victim of extreme dehydration and trauma-induced psychosis. He spent the next 30 years in a secure government medical facility before dying of a supposed heart attack. His testimony was classified, his name erased, his experience relegated to the ravings of a madman. But the government kept his drawings. They kept the geological samples he brought back. Rocks that, under microscopic analysis, showed a crystalline structure that violated the known laws of physics. They buried the truth, but they started a file. A file on a place that shouldn't exist. A file on the location that reappears in reports. Narrator. A single data point can be an anomaly, a tragic, isolated incident. Witness Zero could have been just that, a footnote in a classified file. But when you pull back, when you look at the archives with the right lens, a second point appears, then a third. Soon the anomalies begin to form a constellation, a terrifying pattern hidden in plain sight. For over a century, people have vanished without a trace. Not just lone hikers, but entire teams, vehicles, even small aircraft. The official explanations are always plausible: pilot error, sudden storms, unforeseen geological events. These are the comfortable lies we tell ourselves to keep the world sane. But the truth, as always, is far more complex and far more sinister. Let's examine Case File 731, 1975, the Amazon rainforest. A botanical research team led by Dr. Aris Thorne disappears. Their final radio transmission is a garbled mess, but one phrase is chillingly clear: the trees are wrong. An extensive search finds their camp untouched. Food is still on the table. Research notes are laid out, but the final pages are filled with frantic sketches. The same impossible spirals, drawn by Witness Zero 7 years prior. The case was closed, attributed to an uncontacted tribe. Now jump to 1986. The Soviet research vessel, the Mikhail Voronov, vanishes in the Arctic Circle during a polar expedition. Just before radio silence, the ship's captain reported a sudden, inexplicable magnetic anomaly that sent their compasses spinning wildly. He also reported seeing what he called a dark mirage on the ice, a structure that seemed to swallow the light. A single distorted image was recovered from their weather monitoring equipment. When digitally enhanced by intelligence agencies, it showed a sliver of a black, angular object on the horizon that defied all logic and perspective. The official conclusion was that the vessel struck an uncharted ice floe and sank. And it continues. A freelance journalist in the Gobi Desert in 1994. A team of spelunkers in the Philippines in 2003. A lone pilot flying over the Australian outback in 2011. The locations are different. The decades change. The victims have no connection to one another. But the threads are there, if you know where to look. Inexplicable sensory distortions. Reports of impossible geometry. Sudden, localized electromagnetic fluctuations. And in 3 of these cases, a final cryptic message referencing a set of coordinates. Coordinates that do not exist on any map. They point to a location in the middle of the Pacific Ocean known as the Silent Point, an area where satellite coverage mysteriously fails and from which no data is ever returned. These aren't random disappearances. This is a feeding pattern. The location, this anomaly, isn't stationary. It manifests, it touches our world, and it takes. Each disappearance is another entry, another report, confirming the existence of a place we were never meant to find. Narrator. In 1977, the Big Ear radio telescope at Ohio State University received a signal so powerful, so unique, It prompted astronomer Jerry Amon to write "Wow" on the printout. The WOW signal remains one of the greatest mysteries in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. But what if the most profound signal ever detected didn't come from the stars? What if it came from within? Or worse, from a place that is neither here nor there? Beginning in the early 1980s, a new sound began to haunt the fringes of our monitoring systems. It was first logged by a clandestine NATO listening post in northern Canada, a station designed to detect Soviet submarine activity. They called it the hum. It wasn't a consistent broadcast, but a burst transmission, appearing at irregular intervals, lasting for precisely 7.2 minutes before vanishing. It was complex, structured, and utterly alien. Triangulation attempts were a nightmare. The signal seemed to have no single point of origin. Sometimes it would resolve to a deep ocean trench. Other times it would pinpoint a desolate mountain range. And on several chilling occasions, it appeared to emanate from the exact last known coordinates of the missing persons we examined in the previous chapter. A ghost broadcasting from an empty grave. For years, a secret, multinational task force known as Echo 7 was dedicated to deciphering it. They brought in the world's best cryptographers, linguists, and mathematicians. The results were unsettling. The signal wasn't a language in any human sense. It was more like a complex mathematical proof or a set of instructions. When converted into visual data, it produced fractals of impossible complexity. When converted to audio, it created sounds that were later found to induce paranoia, dread, and temporal lobe epilepsy in test subjects. One of the lead researchers on the project, Dr. Alara Vance, wrote in a now-leaked private journal, "We are not listening to a message. We are listening to the sound of the cage's bars rattling. This isn't a call. It's the noise a place makes when it's breathing." Dr. Vance disappeared from her home in 1992. The official story was that she took a sabbatical and never returned. But her colleagues tell a different story. They say she became obsessed, convinced the signal was imprinting itself onto our reality. She believed it was a byproduct of the location's physics, an echo of its existence bleeding through into our dimension. The most disturbing fragment they ever managed to translate wasn't a sentence, but a concept, a recurring set of ideas. Observation, collapse, invitation, become. Is the signal a beacon, drawing the curious and the unlucky towards it? Or is it a warning, a siren's call emanating from a trans-dimensional shipwreck? The only certainty is that the signal continues to this day. It is broadcasting right now. A ghost on the wire, a message from nowhere, an invitation from the location that reappears in reports. Narrator. For decades, the story of this impossible place existed only in fragments. A survivor's rambling testimony, a pattern of disappearances, a phantom signal. They were disparate pieces of a puzzle no one in the public sphere knew existed. All of it could be dismissed. But in 2018, an anonymous leak changed everything. A single, heavily redacted document appeared on a secure server, a document that sent shockwaves through the intelligence community. It is known as the Ashworth Memo. Dated November 1987, it was written by a man named Michael Ashworth, then deputy director of a DARPA offshoot. So secret, its name is still classified. The memo is addressed to a select oversight committee. It is not a research proposal or a status update. It is a warning, a plea. I'm going to read you excerpts. The redactions are from the original document. To the committee, it begins. Recontainment and mitigation strategy for Anomaly K. It is my reluctant conclusion, after 15 years of direct observation and the loss of teams, including Project Sundown, that our current approach is not only failing, but is actively exacerbating the threat. Anomaly K, this is the first official designation we have for the location, is not a static geographical feature. It is a transient, quasi-sentient, trans-dimensional event. Our attempts to predict its manifestations have failed. Our attempts to breach it have resulted in the total loss of every probe and every team. The surveyor from '68 was not the first contact. He was merely the first to be returned. This single sentence is a bombshell. It confirms Witness Zero's story was known and understood at the highest levels. It confirms there were others, many others. The memo goes on. The signal, designated Echo 7, is not a communication. Analysis from Dr. Vance's team suggests it is an environmental byproduct, akin to a heat signature. It is the sound of the anomaly's physics imposing itself on our own. More alarmingly, the frequency of manifestations has increased by 400% in the last decade. It is reactive. It appears to be drawn to and concentrated human observation. Our very attempts to study it are calling it forth. It is learning. This is the document's chilling core. The location is not just a place. It's a predatory intelligence that responds to being watched. The memo's final paragraph is the most heavily redacted, but what remains is the stuff of nightmares. The standing policy of disinformation and public suppression must be maintained at all costs. The reason is not to prevent mass panic, but to prevent mass. If the nature of Anomaly K were to become public knowledge, the sheer volume of global conscious observation directed at it could trigger a permanent, self-sustaining manifestation event. We theorize this is what it wants. We are not dealing with a place. We are dealing with a lure. Containment is no longer a viable option. I hereby recommend the immediate implementation of the protocol. May God have mercy on our souls. The Ashworth Memo was disavowed. Michael Ashworth himself died in a car accident 2 weeks after writing it. But the document is out there. It tells us that the cover-up isn't just to hide the truth. It's a desperate, failing attempt to keep us from looking. Because if we all look at the dark at the same time, what happens when it looks back? Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. Narrator. In the world of classified information and state secrets, there are two kinds of truths: the truth that is hidden and the truth that is manufactured. For the unnamed location, that is the subject of our investigation, a place that appears and disappears from official records as readily as the people who venture into it. The manufactured truth is both elegant and deeply insufficient. The official designation, found buried in declassified but heavily redacted geological surveys from the mid-1970s, is Anomalous Magnetic Influence Zone 7, or AMIS 7. The public explanation is far simpler: a zone of extreme magnetic interference. According to government-sanctioned reports, like the infamous Addington Survey of 1978, the area sits atop one of the largest and most potent unrecorded lodestone deposits on the planet. This natural supermagnet, they claim, is the source of all the bizarre phenomena. It's a clean, scientific, and deeply reassuring explanation. It accounts for why compasses spin wildly, why analog navigation equipment in older aircraft fails catastrophically. The official literature even attempts to explain the profound sense of disorientation reported by survivors by citing fringe studies on biomagnetism, the theory that the human brain's own electrical signals are disrupted, leading to hallucinations and memory loss. Case File 33B714 is the cornerstone of this official narrative. It details the disappearance of a Cessna survey plane, Flight 714, in 1982. The plane vanished from radar in clear weather. The official report concluded that the aircraft's instruments were compromised by a sudden geomagnetic vortex, leading to pilot disorientation and a fatal crash. But this is where the official story begins to fray. The report fails to mention that the wreckage was never found. More importantly, it omits the fact that in 1985, 3 years later, the same Cessna reappeared, parked perfectly on a long-abandoned airstrip 200 miles away. It was completely empty. The fuel tanks were full, the flight log was blank. The only thing inside was a thick layer of dust and a compass whose needle had been melted into a single, inert lump. The official addendum to the report attributes this to a prank, a hoax. But who could stage such an elaborate hoax with a missing aircraft? And how does a magnetic field account for the temporal anomalies, the missing time, the reports of landscapes that shift and change? Why does it affect modern, satellite-based GPS systems that shouldn't be vulnerable to terrestrial magnetism? The official explanation is a firewall, built to contain public curiosity. It's a story designed to make you feel safe, to assure you that the laws of physics are still intact. But as we peel back the layers of redaction and denial, we find that the zone of magnetic interference is not an explanation. It is a cover story for a place that defies explanation entirely. Narrator. When the official story is a carefully constructed dam, the truth inevitably leaks through the cracks. For every redacted report and sanitized press release, there are dozens of unofficial accounts, whispered in hushed tones by pilots, sailors, and search and rescue veterans. These stories paint a picture, not of a passive magnetic anomaly, but of something far more active, almost predatory. They call it the navigational black hole. This theory, first compiled by the independent researcher and former air traffic controller Eris Thorne, posits that the location doesn't just confuse navigation, it actively consumes it. It is a spatial anomaly that erases the very concept of direction. Thorne's archives are filled with harrowing testimonies. There is the story of the Odessa, a fishing trawler from 1971. Its captain, a man with 40 years of experience, radioed in a state of panic. For 3 days, they had been sailing under clear skies, the sun and stars visible, yet every attempt to leave the area led them back to the exact same coordinates. Their compass was useless, but even their celestial navigation, the most reliable method known to man, was lying to them. The sea itself seemed to be looping back on itself. Then there's the account of a hiker in 1996, equipped with one of the first commercial GPS units. He reported that, as he entered the region, the device didn't fail. It became malevolent. It showed him walking across a lake that wasn't there, climbing a mountain that was miles to his left. It was actively trying to get him lost. The navigational black hole theory suggests this is more than an instrumental failure. It's a sensory one. The location projects a false reality. Survivors speak of seeing familiar trails where none exist, of hearing the voices of loved ones calling them deeper into the woods, of an unshakable feeling that the sun is rising in the west. It is a trap for the mind, as much as the compass. This theory also provides a chilling explanation for the disappearances and reappearances. It suggests the black hole is a spatio-temporal vortex. It doesn't just trap you in space, it holds you outside of linear time. Those who vanish are held in a state of navigational limbo, a pocket of reality where moments can stretch into years, or years can compress into moments. When the anomaly releases them, they reappear, often with no memory of the event and no awareness of the time that has passed for the rest of the world. This aligns perfectly with the psychological profiles of survivors who consistently exhibit signs of severe memory fragmentation and a profound ontological dread, the sense of having been temporarily erased from existence. The official narrative of magnetic interference is a child's ghost story compared to this. The unofficial theory suggests a place on Earth that actively hunts, that uses the laws of navigation as a weapon to ensnare those who trespass. Narrator. Beyond government cover-ups and witness testimonies lies a theory so profound, so utterly terrifying, that it exists only in the unpublished papers and encrypted emails of a handful of theoretical physicists. At the forefront of this fringe science is Dr. Evelyn Reed, whose career was effectively ended when she proposed her hypothesis at a symposium in 2004. She doesn't call it a magnetic zone or a navigational anomaly. She calls it a localized reality flaw. Her theory suggests that the location is not a place where the laws of physics are bent, but a place where they are fundamentally broken. Imagine the universe as a vast, digital simulation. Dr. Reed posits that this location is a patch of corrupted code, a cluster of dead pixels on the screen of reality. Within its borders, causality is not a guarantee. Time is not a straight line. Matter is not entirely stable. This, she argues, is the only hypothesis that accounts for all the data. The magnetic and navigational disturbances are merely symptoms of a much deeper sickness in space-time itself. The disappearances are not simple cases of people getting lost. They are instances of individuals or objects slipping through the cracks of our dimension. Where do they go? Reed's papers offer several chilling possibilities. Into a parallel universe with slightly different physical constants, into the unspace between dimensions, or perhaps they are simply deleted from the universe's code, their matter and energy ceasing to cohere. The reappearances are even more disturbing. They are evidence of the flaw's instability. A person who vanished in 1960 might reappear in 2020, not having aged a day, because they were held in a temporal buffer, a place where time stood still. This hypothesis explains the impossible artifacts allegedly recovered from the periphery of the zone by clandestine research teams. An Eisenhower-era silver dollar found with its atomic structure partially phased into that of the granite rock it was resting on. A modern smartphone, its battery still holding a charge, discovered inside a sealed Victorian-era time capsule. These are not hoaxes. They are bleed-throughs, data from one frame of reality glitching into another. According to Reed, the government's cover story isn't just to prevent panic. It's born of sheer impotence. How can you control a place where cause and effect are optional? How can you study a phenomenon that might erase your researchers from the timeline? The most terrifying part of Dr. Reed's hypothesis is her final question, the one that cost her her reputation. Is the flaw stable? Or is it, like a crack in a windshield, slowly spreading? Narrator. For all our modern attempts to define this place with the language of science, magnetism, space-time, quantum physics, we may not be the first to have tried. Long before the first compass needle spun out of control, long before the first airplane vanished from radar, this location was already known, and it was already feared. If you peel back the layers of history, past the government reports and scientific theories, you find a deeper, older stratum of knowledge: folklore. In the archives of the earliest colonial surveyors, the area is conspicuously blank. On some 17th century Spanish maps, it is marked with a simple, chilling phrase, Terra Damnata, the damned earth. But the most profound warnings come from the indigenous peoples who lived on these lands for millennia. Their oral traditions, passed down through countless generations, speak of a place they call the shunned ground. It was not a place of evil in the conventional sense, but a place of profound wrongness. Their legends do not speak of magnetic fields, but of a trickster spirit, a powerful entity that took delight in tangling the threads of the world. This spirit, they said, could steal the sun from the sky, make the trees walk, and whisper in your ear with the voice of your mother to lead you astray. The parallels to modern reports are uncanny. The trickster spirit that rearranges the landscape is a perfect allegorical match for the navigational black hole. The legends also contain a set of rigid, practical warnings that are, in essence, a survival guide. Never enter the shunned ground during a new moon. Never follow an animal that appears unusually tame. And most importantly, if you feel the world go silent and the air grow cold, turn back immediately and do not stop until you are home. They believed that those who were taken by the spirit were not killed. They were unwoven from the tapestry of the world, only to be woven back in at the spirit's whim. Sometimes a moment later, sometimes a lifetime later, and sometimes not at all. This is a near-perfect description of the temporal displacement detailed in the most radical of modern theories. Perhaps the most tangible evidence of this ancient knowledge is the discovery made in 1988 by an archaeological team. A series of deeply weathered monolith-like stones, arranged in a vast, broken circle around the perimeter of the zone. The carvings on them are eroded beyond recognition, but their purpose seems clear. It was a fence, a warning, a desperate attempt by an ancient culture not to keep intruders out, but to keep something incomprehensibly powerful and strange in. We are not discovering this phenomenon. We are simply rediscovering it, armed with new words for an ancient and primal fear. The name has changed, but the nature of the ground has not. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some places are not on any map because the map itself is afraid of what's there. Narrator. November 1978, the North Atlantic. A meteorological research flight, call sign Vanguard 7, is charting unusual atmospheric pressure systems. The aircraft, a modified NC-121K, is a flying laboratory, crewed by a team of 5 seasoned scientists and 2 veteran pilots. Their flight path is routine, a long, sweeping arc over a supposedly unremarkable stretch of ocean. But their target is anything but unremarkable. Declassified internal memos from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration refer to this area with a simple, chilling designation: the Anomaly Zone. This is the same zone that appears in naval reports from the 1950s, the same coordinates that surface in 17th century shipping logs describing phantom tides. It is the location that reappears in reports. For the first 6 hours, the flight is nominal. The crew collects data. Their communications with ground control are clear, filled with technical jargon and casual remarks. Then the transcript changes. The background static intensifies. The calm professionalism in the pilot's voice begins to fray. Pilot: Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Vanguard 7. We have a total instrument failure. Compass is spinning. I repeat, the compass is spinning. GPS it's gone. All nav is gone. Narrator: Ground control attempts to re-establish contact to get a fix on their position. But Vanguard 7 is electronically invisible. For 7 agonizing minutes, there is only silence. Then a final broken transmission cuts through the static. It is not from the pilot, but from Dr. Eris Thorne, the lead atmospheric physicist on board. His voice is not panicked. It's something far more disturbing. A tone of profound, terrifying awe. Dr. Thorne. The sky. It's wrong. The stars are wrong. There's a fold. It's not water below us. It's black glass, reflecting us, but we're not moving. We've been here before. They've all been here before. The geometry is impossible. It's... Narrator: That was the last anyone ever heard from Vanguard 7. The search and rescue operation found nothing. No wreckage, no oil slick, no debris. The official report cited catastrophic equipment failure and extreme weather phenomena. But tucked away in the appendix, redacted in the public version, is a spectral analysis of that final transmission. Analysts couldn't explain the background frequencies. They weren't natural. They weren't man-made. They described them as a harmonic echo of a non-Euclidean space. Dr. Thorne's final words are a chilling echo of other accounts tied to this location. A 1923 journal entry from a solo sailor describes sailing on a sea of obsidian under an alien starfield. A 1965 pilot's report, dismissed as hypoxia-induced hallucination, mentions flying over a geometric impossibility. The final transmission from Vanguard 7 is not just the story of a lost flight. It is another entry, another voice, added to the growing, terrifying file on the location that should not exist. Narrator: History is not a straight line. It is a chaotic tapestry of events, of triumphs and tragedies. We look for patterns to make sense of the chaos. But what if the pattern itself is the source of the horror? What if the chaos is not random, but orchestrated by a single, immovable point on the globe, an anchor for misfortune? Let us examine 3 seemingly unrelated events pulled from the deep archives. First, 1883. The merchant vessel, Clara Jane, vanishes without a trace while on a routine trade route from Lisbon to Halifax. The ship was new, the captain highly experienced, the weather clear. The final entry in a nearby lighthouse keeper's log notes seeing the Clara Jane sail into a localized, unnatural fog bank that dissipated as quickly as it formed. The ship never sailed out. Second, 1952. A squadron of 4 naval patrol bombers on a training exercise over the Atlantic reports severe magnetic interference and disorientation. 3 of the 4 planes managed to turn back, their crews reporting vertigo and nausea. The lead aircraft, however, flies on, its pilot radioing that his compass was pointing down. It was never seen again. Third, 2004. A commercial deep-sea fiber optic cable designated TAT-18 suffers a complete and inexplicable severance. The break was clean, almost surgical, at a depth of over 4,000 meters. Submersible investigation teams found no evidence of seismic activity, no wreckage, nothing that could account for the damage. It was as if a section of the cable had simply ceased to exist. 3 different centuries, 3 different technologies, 3 different tragedies. A lost ship, a vanished plane, a severed cable. On the surface, they share nothing in common. They are footnotes in maritime, aviation, and telecommunications history. But when you plot the location of each incident on a map, a cold, undeniable pattern emerges. The coordinates converge. The unnatural fog bank reported in 1883. The point of no return for the patrol bomber in 1952. The precise location of the cable break in 2004. They all fall within the same 10-square-kilometer patch of ocean. A patch that has no official name, no unique geological features. It is a ghost on the map, a void, but in the classified reports, it is the one constant. It is the location that reappears in reports. This is not coincidence. The statistical probability of these disparate high-impact events occurring in the exact same unremarkable location is infinitesimally small. It suggests that the location itself is the causal agent, a geographical predator. Each incident file, when viewed in isolation, is a mystery. When viewed together, they form a terrifying conclusion. Something is present at these coordinates, something that interacts with our world in catastrophic ways, leaving behind only questions, redactions, and grieving families. The archives do not call it a haunting, they call it a persistent geographical phenomenon. A clinical, sterile term for a place that seems to actively consume our history. Narrator. In the 21st century, we have wrapped our world in a digital cocoon. A network of satellites watches over us, a web of signals that allows for constant communication, navigation, and observation. We believe there are no more blank spaces on the map. We are wrong. There is at least one. A place our most advanced technology cannot properly see. A place that actively repels our digital gaze. On May 11th, 2019, at 04:30 GMT, something happened to the IRIS-3 satellite, a state-of-the-art geospatial intelligence satellite operated by a private aerospace contractor. IRIS-3 was part of a constellation providing high-resolution Earth imagery. Its orbit was flawless, its systems operating perfectly. Then, for a period of 93 seconds, it went blind, as its orbital path took it directly over a specific set of coordinates in the Atlantic. Its primary imaging sensor recorded nothing but pure, unadulterated digital noise. Not blackness, not a sensor error, but a chaotic storm of meaningless data. Simultaneously, its GPS locator failed, its atomic clock lost sync, and its communication link with ground control was severed. For those 93 seconds, to the global network that tracks it, the multi-billion-dollar satellite ceased to exist. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the phenomenon ended. IRIS-3 came back online. All systems rebooted, and it continued its mission as if nothing had happened. The contractor, fearing industrial espionage or a new form of anti-satellite weaponry, immediately classified the incident. Internal analysts were stumped. The data logs showed no external interference, no solar flare activity, no system malfunction. It was as if the satellite had passed through a region where the laws of physics, or at least our ability to measure them, were temporarily suspended. When they plotted the coordinates of the blackout, they found themselves staring at a familiar location. The very same spot where Vanguard 7 sent its final transmission. The same nexus point for the historical tragedies we examined earlier. The location that reappears in reports. This modern event is perhaps the most terrifying of all. A 19th century ship could be explained away by rogue waves. A mid-20th century plane by pilot error. But a 21st century satellite, a marvel of precision engineering, cannot be so easily dismissed. The Iris 3 incident proves that this is not a relic of a superstitious past. It is an active, ongoing phenomenon that affects the very fabric of our technology. It is a blind spot in our all-seeing eye, a hole in our digital armor. The official report, buried on a secure server, concludes with a recommendation that is both logical and deeply unsettling. All future satellite orbits must be adjusted to avoid these coordinates. They are not attempting to understand it. They are not trying to study it. They are simply steering our technology away from it, quietly redrawing the map of the sky to pretend the blind spot doesn't exist. Narrator: we have journeyed through whispers and warnings, through garbled transmissions, and the ghosts of lost crews. We have connected the tragedies of the past with the technological anomalies of the present. All of these threads, all of these disparate pieces of data, lead us to one final, tantalizing mystery: the knowledge that is being deliberately concealed. Imagine a place, deep within the sterile, climate-controlled archives of a clandestine government agency. It is a place of infinite records, a library of secrets. Down endless corridors of rolling shelves, past files marked top secret and cosmic, there is a single, unassuming filing cabinet. It is not locked with any special biometric scanner or keypad. It is sealed with simple obscurity. In this cabinet, there is a file. It has no title, no case number, no designation whatsoever. It is a plain, beige folder, worn from decades of handling by a select few. This is the unmarked file. Inside is everything. The original audio reel from Vanguard 7's final transmission. A fragment of wood recovered in 1884, miles from the Clara Jane's last known position, containing splinters of a wood that does not match any known terrestrial tree. The complete, unredacted psychiatric evaluations of the pilots who survived the 1952 incident, all of whom drew the same impossible geometric shape in their debriefings. And at the very back, the raw, terrifying data stream from the Iris 3 satellite's 93-second blackout. All of these pieces, which we have painstakingly assembled, are already there, collected and collated in one place. What does this file conclude? What is the ultimate secret it protects? Is it a weapon, a gateway, a natural phenomenon so far beyond our comprehension that its revelation would shatter our understanding of reality? The existence of this file implies a terrible truth. Someone knows. For generations, analysts and observers have been adding to this silent testament, studying the location that reappears in reports. They know about the convergence of tragedies. They know about the satellite blind spot. They know far more than we have uncovered. The silence is the most frightening part. The lack of an official investigation, the quiet rerouting of flight paths and shipping lanes, the subtle adjustments to satellite orbits. These are not the actions of those who are ignorant. These are the actions of those who are afraid. The unmarked file is not just a collection of data. It is a containment protocol. Its purpose is not to solve the mystery, but to ensure that the rest of the world never realizes there is a mystery to be solved. The file remains waiting. A silent, terrifying summary of a place that should not be, a place that continues to wait, patiently, just beyond the edge of our maps.